1, 시작!
Hello everybody, and as the public relations person of our team WeWalk, I'm here to give you a very short presentation on how our smart webcam for the visually impaired will actually be applicable and how the technology is actually being used in the current day as well. Next slide please. And so this is just a brief breakdown of our team. We have 5 members in total and I am the public relations manager of this team. And so basically today I'll just be breaking down our motivation for development, a brief explanation of the visually impaired cane, and then finally I'll go over the feasibility of this technology. So our motivation for development. Now, visually impaired people are called visually impaired people because they can't exactly see very well, or in many cases they actually can't see at all. And so in recent years, governments have been trying to increase the technology used to try and make their lives easier. For example, this button thing is prevalent in every developed country around the world. However, there are very many problems with this, and only in Korea, these are 2 separate news articles detailing why these buttons for the visually impaired to safely cross streets are actually not functioning as the way they were supposed to. The first article describes these as useless audio traffic lights and how they're actually dangerous for the visually impaired instead of making it safer for them. While the second one says that the crosswalks, even with these, actually have no consideration for the visually impaired and only are just a feel-good thing for the government to act like they're actually doing something for the visually impaired. And the next video, on the next slide, will actually show why these buttons are not serving their intended function.
시간이 부족하오니 다음 신호를 기다려 주십시오.
And so as you can see in the video, not only was the button a very far distance away from the actual crosswalk, it also is very small, so it actually makes it very hard for the visually impaired to actually find and press the button in the first place. And in many cases, by the time that they find the button, the time for crossing has already passed. And add to the fact that there is no barrier surrounding the pole that has the actual button. So if, say, a visually impaired person were to pass by the pole by accident, then it is very likely that they could just simply walk onto the street, which is also a very high cause of traffic accidents, including the visually impaired. This is why we decided that the current button for the prompt to cross is actually not very useful, because A, it is hard to find the button in the first place. Second of all, many people who have visually impaired are very reluctant to actually show their disability in the public. And third, like I explained before, because of the lack of barriers, the lack of safekeeping, the traffic accidents for the visually impaired increases exponentially. And so what is our solution to this? We created a solution for a smart cane that uses beacon technology to actually get rid of the actual need to use these buttons in the first place. And so here's the explanation of our idea. First of all, what we'll be using is called beacon technology. And so what is this beacon technology? First of all, the beacon itself would be using Bluetooth and it looks something like this. It is actually very small and so thus is very appropriate for use in the cane because we can easily insert it within the cane. And so what it does is that it auto-detects nearby smart devices, for example other beacons or a smartphone for example, and then it will transmit the necessary data wirelessly, which can be controlled using other technology that we will explain later. And the important features of the beacon is that, first of all, it has a maximum range of 70 meters, small size and low power consumption, which means it can go on a very long charge for a single charge, And third is that it has very accurate positioning. And so here is a prototype of our product and just a short video of somebody using it.
이번에는 제가 직접 횡단보도를 가서 솔루션을 시연해 보겠습니다.
So as you can see there, the cane itself would tell the visually impaired person who's using it where the actual crosswalk was and whether they were close to it or not. And once the visually impaired gets close enough to the traffic light and also the crosswalk, then the beacon will transmit that information to them to tell them whether it is a red light or a green light. If it's a red light, it will tell them, the technology will tell them approximately how much time is left before it turns into a green light. And if it is a green light, then it will tell the person whether it is safe to cross or not. And so even 5 years ago, people would have called us crazy for thinking of this because the technology simply was not there. However, now the technology is there and it also is already being used. For example, for the American audience, the thing that will probably be most close to home is how the New York Mets actually use this technology within their home field, City Field. Basically what it does is that it detects the spectator's location and then it provides area-specific information. For example, if I had a dugout seat, then the beacons within the seats for the City Field would tell me where all the restrooms, where all the concession stands would be near the dugout stand. In Korea, we have something called for a siren order for Starbucks, and what it does is that it detects the customer's location within the shop itself, and then transmits the order details to the barista, so that the customer can easily access the menu and also order what they want to the barista without actually having to go to the barista and tell them, which is very nice, especially with the current pandemic going on right now. And the last technology that we thought of off the top of our heads was another technology used in Korea, which is called the Yap Beacon. And basically what it does is it detects a customer's location within consumer spaces, for example, a shopping mall, and whether they entered an actual store or not. And then it gathers that info into a comprehensive manner and then sends it to either door chimes or it can send it directly to cashiers as well. And so, product design and feasibility. So our central product, as explained before, is to take the cane, which is already commonly used by visually impaired people, and then evolve it into something that is much more than a cane. And so what we were planning to do is synthesize beacon technology with the cane, which will allow real-time communication with beacons installed in traffic lights, and then it will also allow for fast and accurate information to be transmitted. And as said before, the upside of using these Bluetooth beacons is that first of all they do low power consumption, and in fact they actually use less power than the button system used right now, so it will not cause any massive increase in the cost of electricity for the government, but it was also relatively cheap to buy and install these, which means that it won't cost them millions of dollars to actually implement the system in the first place. They would also have a range of 5 meters, and we decided on 5 meters because, first of all, having the full max 70 meters would probably get too many crosswalks to transmit data, and so shortening to 5 meters would allow the cane to accurately transmit its location and data to a singular crosswalk that the visually impaired person is intending to cross. And so basically, this is the pathway the cane would use to determine if they should what information to transmit to the person in the first place. First of all, the location of the crosswalk is transmitted to the smart cane through the beacon technology as explained before. Second of all, it would ask if the user will cross through a Bluetooth earpiece, or if they're also hard of hearing, then it will also use a vibration system, which would also be implemented into the cane itself. The user can answer using 2 braille buttons on the cane, yes or no, and if they answer yes, then the cane would detect the user's location and wait until the user is at the crosswalk. If no, the smart cane would transmit locations of other crosswalks using a GPS system according to the user's movement so that they can easily find another crosswalk or the crosswalk that they were trying to find in the first place. Upon arrival, the smart cane would then contact the beacon and the traffic light to determine its status, whether it's green or red. And if red, it would transmit the time remaining until it turns green through the earpiece, or once again through vibrations. And if green, it would tell you the user that it is safe to cross through the earpiece, as well as how much time is left before it turns red again. And so, all required information would be transmitted through a Bluetooth earpiece, which once again can also be found very cheaply. And if the user's ears are sensitive, then communication is also possible through vibration on the cane, as explained earlier. And this would also allow for the user to easily check the status of traffic lights, thus reducing the chances of any accidents involving visually impaired people. Thank you.